This is a portion of a Dharma talk given by Reverend Koho Takata on June 26, 2022 at the West Los Angeles Buddhist Temple. The topic is the burning house. There is a story written in the Lotus Sutra expressing the realm of samsara, or the defiled land we live in. One day, a fire suddenly broke out in the house of a father who had many children. The sons of the father, 10, 20, perhaps 30, were inside the house. The father shouted at his children inside the burning house to run away from the house. However, the children were still inside the burning house, enjoying themselves and playing games, unaware, unknowing, without alarm or fear. At that time, the father thought to himself that the house is already in flames from the huge fire. If my sons and I do not get out at once, we are certain to be burned. I must now use some skillful means that will make it possible for the children to escape from the fire. The father understood his sons and knew what various toys and curious objects each child customarily liked and what would delight them. Then the father called them to come out of the house full of fire to get new toys. The children, eager to play with these new toys, rushed out of the burning house, so the children were all saved from the dangers of the house full of fire. This story expresses ourselves who live in this defiled land, which is a burning house with a huge fire full of defiled passions. The Father is a Buddha who is constantly calling out and guiding us who are enjoying ourselves with our greed, anger, and ignorance, and are unaware of our burning selfishness. Shinran Shonin expressed the similar teaching that we are living in this burning house and said, quote, "With a foolish being full of blind passions in this fleeting world, this burning house, all matters without exception are empty and false, totally without truth and sincerity. The Nembutsu alone is true and real." We always pursue and become greedy if it is convenient for us to accept. We become angry and upset if it is not convenient for us to accept. Thus, we are constantly burning with our selfishness and living in this fleeting world where there is no truth. Our truth, defined by our self-centered eyes, constantly changes depending on our convenience. As Shakyamuni Buddha teaches us, all things in this world are constantly changing. Everything is empty and temporary. There is no permanent self. Shinran Shonin respectfully received the truth or the true teaching from Shakyamuni Buddha and reminded us that we are totally ignorant to the truth in this fleeting world full of defiled passions. Shinran Shonin urged us to entrust ourselves to the dependable truth, Namo Amidabutsu, which is the calling voice of Shakyamuni Buddha and Amida Buddha. There is a well-known story of two rivers and a white path written by Shantao. A man is traveling to the west. In the wilderness, he finds himself pursued by bandits and wild animals. Trying to run away, he comes upon two rivers. One is a river of fire that flows to the south, and the other is a river of water that flows to the north. These two rivers are 100 paces wide, but endlessly long. Dividing the fire and water is a single white path that is about 4 or 5 inches wide. The wide path leads to the west bank. As fire is raging on one side and the water is breaking over the path from the other, he hesitates to take the path. But since death appears inevitable, he thinks of crossing between fire and water. Just then he hears a voice from the eastern bank urging him to go forward across the path, and another voice from the western bank urging him on. Encouraged by these two voices, he proceeds determinedly along the path and soon reaches the western bank. The river of fire represents anger. The river of water represents greed. The white path expresses a possibility of awakening to Shinjin in our defiled minds. The traveler represents us who always have a mind of doubt about the Buddha Dharma. The voice from the eastern bank is the teaching of Shakyamuni Buddha. Shakyamuni Buddha always encourages us to hear the calling voice of Amida Buddha, Namo Amidabutsu, to be free from our sufferings. The voice from the western bank is Amida Buddha's call for us to receive and accept the inconceivable working of the Buddha, the perfect wisdom and great compassion of the Buddha. In other words, the Larger Sutra is the voice of Shakyamuni Buddha, who expounded the teaching of Amida Buddha's primal vow. Shakyamuni Buddha is encouraging us to hear the teaching of Amida Buddha's primal vow, Namo Amidabutsu, written in the Larger Sutra, and to receive the calling voice of Amida Buddha, Namo Amidabutsu, without any doubts. The narrow white path expresses the possibility of awakening Shinjin, or true and trusting mind, in our defiled minds. Shinjin, or true and trusting mind, is completely to throw away our mind of doubt or calculation and accept and entrust ourselves to Shakyamuni Buddha's encouragement to hear the Larger Sutra, or Namo Amidabutsu, and respond to Amida Buddha's calling voice, Namo Amidabutsu. If you are this traveler, what do you do? One may die if one stays or moves forward or goes back. Mind of doubt. Namo means to take refuge. To take refuge is to respond to the command and follow the call of the two honored ones, Shakyamuni and Amida. We are currently living in this samsara, the defiled land which is consumed with a big fire full of our greed, anger, and ignorance, and enjoying ourselves unaware and unknowing about our sufferings. In the darkness of the suffering, there is no light, and we cannot see anything, so we need to depend on the sound in the darkness. Namo Amidabutsu is the sound of the Buddha in the darkness, always calling us with the voice embodying the light of wisdom to shed upon our darkness. Shinran Shonin revealed that the darkness of our ignorance is cleared by Namo Amidabutsu, the light of the wisdom and compassion of the Buddha. If we say Namo Amidabutsu, we can instantly hear Namo Amidabutsu with our ears as it is. There is no case in which we hear a different sound from what we say. If we say Namo Amidabutsu, we hear Namo Amidabutsu as it is. Although the voice of Namo Amidabutsu is the voice that we say, Namo Amidabutsu we hear at the same time is the Buddha's calling voice. In other words, the sound of Namo Amidabutsu itself is the manifestation of Amida Buddha and the Buddha's primal vow embodying the perfect wisdom and great compassion of the Buddha. When we wake up in the morning, can we see the moon and stars in the sky? Although we cannot see the moon and stars during the daytime, the moon and stars certainly exist in the sky. In the same way, although we cannot see Namo Amidabutsu due to our self-centered eyes being hindered by our defiled passions, the wisdom and compassion of the Buddha is certainly reaching us and working for us at all times and in all places. Let us sincerely receive and accept the compassionate working of Amida Buddha, who cannot help but always be concerned for us and is always calling out to us. In response, let us live our lives to the utmost, hearing Namo Amidabutsu and receiving the working of the Buddha's infinite wisdom and compassion as it is.